Kolbrin Book of Wisdom, Chapter 12, The Good Life. Life is not altogether a vale of sorrow, neither is it meant to be a grim, unending struggle. Man is born into the world to make the best possible use of earthly conditions, and this does not mean that effort should be concentrated exclusively on the achievement of spirituality. Things must be kept in the right perspective, and a proper balance achieved. It is unwise to let thoughts dwell exclusively upon the spiritual realm, and this was never intended. Only its reality and ultimate attainment should be ever borne in mind. Man is to make the most of conditions as he finds them, and get all the happiness he can from life within the framework laid down in the sacred books. Not only must he make the best of earthly conditions, but he must also improve them, so that more happiness may be gained. Though this may appear to serve only an earthly end, it is not entirely the case, for in the effort lies the spiritual development. Earthly conditions are not to be accepted passively, for every man has a duty to make some improvement, however slight, upon the earthly state of things. While permitted to seek the greatest amount of happiness, man must bear in mind that the search must not extend beyond the bounds of his duties and responsibilities. When seeking spirituality and knowledge of the spiritual realm, man must remember that there are limitations as to what he can experience. The purpose of earth must, and will, be maintained with all its lack of stability and certainty. No mortal man will ever know for certain what the coming year will bring. The amount of spiritual experience and enlightenment permitted any man is just sufficient not to upset the balance of his life or nullify his earthly existence. This is a fact which should be clearly understood by those ignorant persons who rail against the lack of divine intervention or guidance. In these times, mankind is not advanced enough for the divine veil to be any more withdrawn, and even in the greater light of the good religion, it will not be removed. The two realms of spirit and matter, mind and body, must remain separated by a near impassable gulf which can be spanned only by the utmost effort. When the light of the good religion is given to the world, it will not be a world ready to welcome it, or even ready to receive it. The world to which it will come will be a sick, disordered world, reluctant to take the medicine which will restore it to health. In those coming days, the desire for the good life will have exceeded its proper bounds, and for many, become the sole objective. It will be a world of spiritual barrenness, a place where discord and disillusion has become lost in a doctrinal wilderness, with nothing more refreshing to offer than the waters of stagnant dogma. What man needs, the good religion will be able to offer. But as man is always tardy in accepting what is good for him, and seems incapable of diagnosing his own maladies, he is unlikely to recognize the remedy. Perhaps the illness of man will then be too far advanced for the simple cure by herbal potions, and only the agonizing knife or cauterizing fire will effect it. Meanwhile, wait and watch for the heralds of the dawn. The body of man is perishable, and only a speck of dust in the great scheme of things. Yet men believe that the mighty universe was created solely to serve it. Man, the mortal, sadly deludes himself by presuming to think he can bend all nature to serve his bodily well-being. As the fool, seeing trees and mountains shimmering in the waters, thinks their images are dancing for his pleasure, So man, while nature follows her destined course, believes all her activity is only to gladden his eye and give him pleasure. Nature, like man, is intended to serve an end and purpose which far exceed any conceivable by mortal flesh alone. Yet it can be said with truth that the eternal universe and boundless nature exist only to serve man, the greater being. Therefore, this being so, each man has a duty to recognize himself for what he really is and to do all that is required of him. He should strive to improve life, to supply something it lacks, and to leave the world a better place for having passed through it. The man who denies himself harmless pleasure is also a wrongdoer and servant of evil, for such pleasures serve a good purpose and proper end. Happiness is not a thing to be avoided, and enjoyments which do no harm are not to be shunned. Desires and ends which are good should be pursued, but bear in mind that the tree of desire will bear no fruit unless nourished with the waters of effort. Happiness itself is not an undesirable end, but too many pay for it with their contentment and peace. It has been taught that the love of pleasure serves no useful end, and that wisdom comes through pain. This is not true, for the spirit can also develop through pleasure, for otherwise it would be an unjust world. Not all school lessons are unpleasant, though all should be rewarding. It is nonetheless true that of all things man may do on earth to his benefit, the acquisition of spirituality is supreme. It is in fact the whole and sole reason for man's existence. Therefore, while getting whatever happiness he can, he should never overindulge his bodily appetites, and should shun the frivolities of life. These are earthly seducers, which leave little time for more beneficial things, and become more demanding as they gain greater control. Such things as eating, drinking, sleeping, and the bodily union of man and woman are meant to be sources of pleasure when enjoyed in moderation and for their proper purpose. They too can serve a spiritual end. The rule is moderation in all things, with consideration for the welfare and feelings of others, and a complete disregard of anything which may serve the cause of evil. Do not fear the onset of old age, for though to the undeveloped spirit it may be the bleak winter of life, to the developed spirit it is the harvesting time. Old age is bodily preparation for departure to rebirth. It is the approach to the threshold of a new life. Every man should earn his livelihood by service, through toil or skill. The man who wishes to live the good life fully must engage in all kinds of activities, in trade and in various instructive affairs. Life, to be properly lived, must be balanced with a knowledge of many things and a variety of experiences. Man must certainly engage in worldly and social activities for the benefit of his body, for its needs are not to be neglected. Still always bear in mind that this is not the sole aim in life, nor the greatest. Only one aim or objective should be held always in view, and that is the perfecting of the soul. In this way, all activities become praiseworthy and beneficial, since the end lies not in the activities themselves, but in their objective. If a man has any talent and fails to develop it, he is unworthy of the gift, and in due course must make an accounting. The man who does not continually expand the horizon of his life becomes stagnant within himself. The man who does not study and learn places himself on the level of the dumb beasts, though even they learn. The good life is a balanced, harmonious life, and a life well and profitably lived. It is a life of many contrasts and experiences, with a steady advance towards spirituality. All earthly goals are elusive, and their attainment may not bring the pleasure and happiness anticipated. There is only one goal, towards which everyone can advance with certainty and assurance, and that is the goal of spirituality. The very things which defeat earthly ends and render them impossible to accomplish are, if viewed in the proper perspective, aids towards the achievement of spirituality. Out of earthly failure and frustration can come spiritual accomplishment and gain. If you can understand this, the good life is yours,